happening, guys? This is Jammer2K back with another player review, and this time I'm going to be looking at the SBC and Cavani. It's a massive 87 rating, but I've seen a lot of people saying that it wasn't worth it at the time and even after the card came out, so I figured it would be worth it to do a longer player review. So I'm going to take an in-depth look at the striker and just how he performed for my team. He earned the SBC card because he reached the career milestone of 300 goals, and that isn't really surprising considering his skill set. The SBC cost me about 20k, but I had a lot of players in my club luckily, and it could cost roughly 30 to 60k depending on which platform you're on. It was too expensive for some people, and other people preferred to sell the players they had, but for an 87 rated striker, 60k isn't bad. The tradable version, the tradable 87 version, is going for about roughly 120,000 coins at the moment, so that's effectively double the price, and it's not necessarily worth it considering the stats aren't really that different. Cavani does have an 88, an 89 and a 90 rated card, but once again that's a lot of coins for what is basically a small upgrade when you consider that his 85 card is pretty decent. But anyway, back to the SBC card. I think straight away the first thing that hit me was the goal threat, because Cavani is just an animal. I mean, lob penalties, long shots, headers, with both feet despite his 3-star weak foot. It would have been nice if he had a shooting speciality or two, but he gets by without it, despite not being able to finesse him into the top corner from 35 yards out. I'd say out of his stats, the most astonishing one is his pace actually, because he's more than quick enough, and because he tries to beat the defensive line, he feels quicker, and he's certainly faster than the SBC Higuain for me. If you want a player to compare him to, I'd say he's very similar to Lukaku, because both have explosive pace and power, and you wouldn't think so, but they find it easy to get away, and they use their elbows, anything, just to make sure that they stay ahead. So I'd say he's another player with a deceptive pace stat, and that might be because his dribbling stats are boosted high enough to make sure that he's good enough to carry the ball at speed, which some players do lack. But whatever the reason, he is faster than you'd expect. I suppose if you didn't get him, the next best thing would be a normal Cavani, especially considering the fact that the normal version's currently sitting at about 6.5 to 7k, which is a joke, and it means that nearly anybody can afford to buy Cavani after a couple of games or a season or two. Another thing I wanted to mention is his headering ability. He has the power header trait, and he really has the power header trait. If you look through the highlights, he scores them again and again from all sorts of angles, and if you're used to doing the near post corner trick, he's an expert at getting ahead of his man and getting that header on target. He has great stats for it. He has a brilliant positioning, finishing, agility, jumping, aggression, heading. Basically a perfect package, and second only to Olivier Giroud, I think, in terms of heading ability in the game for me. Of course, it's not all plain sailing, and there are a few problems. I mean, there's the obvious ones, which are the 3-star weak foot, which is a big shame. It does impact on his dribbling and stuff, and then there's the lack of 4-star skills, which is noticeable once you get used to having 4-star skill strikers. And then there's his nationality and fitting him into teams, which can be a problem if you don't run a League One team. I'm lucky that I have relatively good players that can fit in with him, but you're probably going to have to sub him on. I mean, I came across a few Cavanis and they were never paired well with the team they were in. I mean, I remember seeing him paired up with Jamie Varney, just dead links everywhere, and that's a sacrifice you might have to be willing to make if you want to fit a striker like Cavani into your team in the first place. Whilst we're on the subject of Vardy, it's fair to say that Cavani isn't a clinical finisher with his foot. I mean, It's not as bad as the stereotype, you know, great positioning and bad finishing, but he did miss quite a few near enough open chances for me along the way. Then again, he made up for it with the goals, and as you can see, helped me to qualify through the weekend league easily enough a couple of times. I think another problem is he's not much better than the normal version, but they're never going to be worth the money, especially considering the fact that they're untradeable. He is blue, and we know what we're getting when it comes to SBC players. We're doing it mostly for the prestige and the slightly boosted stats. So, when it comes down to it, was the Cavani SBC worth it? I'd say definitely 100%. He'll dominate in the weekend league qualifiers, especially against the weaker teams, and if you're good enough you can use him for champions, although it might be hard to find a team to play around him, to be totally honest. I'd highly recommend the normal card. It's hardly any different, it has the same specialities and the same lack of traits, and it's dirt cheap. So that's about it from me. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll be back with some more FIFA related content in the near future.